So Ukraine continues to get its weapons and systems in a major boost to Ukraine's air defense in this raging war with Russia. Information is that the United Kingdom is all set to send the Stormer armored vehicles to Ukraine. Now these armored vehicles are fitted with launchers for anti-air missiles. Now UK's Defence Secretary Ben Wallace has confirmed that Ukraine is being presented these armored vehicles. Britain's understanding is that the next 3 weeks are going to be very critical in this conflict, and Ukraine needs more long-range artillery, ammunition and other warlike stores, not just from NATO countries or of Western origin, but also Soviet-era weapons and systems that Ukraine has been using. The question remains, will NATO countries, including those that have old Soviet-era equipment, be in a position to supply these weapons systems and warlike stores, especially with Lviv and the West axis now directly in the line of Russia's fire? I'll get you more on the story, but let's listen in to the British Defence Secretary Ben Wallace.
And I can now announce to the House that we shall be gifting a small number of armoured vehicles fitted with launchers for those anti-air missiles. These Stormer vehicles will give Ukraine forces enhanced short-range anti-air capabilities both day and night.
I quickly now want to cut across to India Today's editor Defence Abhishek Bhalla, who joins us live from Ukraine's capital Kiev. Abhishek, is this substantive, or is this still symbolic, the kind of the small number of armoured personal carriers and surface-to-air missiles, short-range surface-to-air missiles that Britain is sending Ukraine? The next 3 weeks likely to be extremely critical, Abhishek.
Yes, Gaurav, very crucial, and the kind of military aid that is pouring in, that gives a clear suggestion that Ukraine is grinding it out, and this is likely to be a long haul. The fighting from here onwards is likely to be restricted to the southern and eastern parts. That's where Russia has been focusing with its assault. Russia wants a land corridor from the south of Ukraine, which is north of Crimea, going up to the eastern parts of Mariupol, Donetsk, Luhansk and even Kharkiv. Also, the US has given some aid. $300 military financial aid has been announced. In addition to that, $165 worth ammunition. So it seems that from various parts of the world, including Great Britain, NATO countries and the US, this kind of military aid is likely to continue in days to come, because this is now looking like a very, very long haul for the Ukraine.
Till the 9th of May, and that is where Russia intends to celebrate its victory. But will that victory be restricted just to the Donbass region? Abhishek Bhalla, Mosmi Singh, Geeta Mohan, India Today's biggest team of reporters on ground will continue to get you the latest on this big story. The Biden administration has upped the ante in Ukraine. Exactly a month ago, President Biden was in Poland. Poland shares a border with Ukraine. Russia had bombed the Ukrainian cities close to this border. This time, the US president, in a secret mission, sent Secretaries of State and Defense, Antony Blinken and Lloyd Austin, to Ukraine's capital, Kiev, to meet President Zelensky. Was the Russian president, Vladimir Putin, was he caught unawares, or did he deliberately look the other way? Because UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres is about to reach Moscow to meet the Russian president in person. Will there be a way forward, or will this war only escalate in the weeks ahead? Let's find out.
The biggest image affirming America's escalation in the Russia-Ukraine war. US Secretary of State Antony Blinken and Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin met Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky on Easter Sunday in Kyiv. The first time any US top official has visited the Ukrainian capital since Russia's invasion began.
Завтра до нас приїжджають люди зі Сполучених Штатів Америки. У мене буде
President Zelensky had declared this meeting a day before, but the White House refused to confirm it was a secrecy-shrouded visit to Ukraine's capital. The confirmation came only after the US Secretary of State and Secretary of Defense reached an undisclosed location on the Ukraine-Poland border.
In terms of Russia's war aims, Russia has already failed, and Ukraine has already succeeded, because the principal aim that President Putin brought to this, in his own words, was to fully subsume Ukraine back into Russia, to take away its sovereignty and independence. And that has not happened, and clearly will not happen.
Journalists traveling with the top-level US delegation were not allowed to report on the visit until it ended. Neither were they allowed to travel with the delegation into Kyiv.
I think we will start.
The United States now believes Ukraine can win. And what the idea on February 24th was, hope parts of Ukraine hold out. That was sort of and therefore they were quite limited in what they would send to Ukraine. What was very interesting about Secretary Austin's talk today was he used the phrase winning the war, helping Ukraine win the war. So they are now committing to Ukraine to help Ukraine in far more advanced ways, because they believe Ukraine can win the war. And that's the difference.
The two top US secretaries of the Biden administration promised President Zelensky that the US would provide more than $300 million in additional foreign military financing and had already approved $165 million worth of ammunition. And US diplomats will be returning to Ukraine in another week to tie up all loose ends.
In terms of the embassy, we will have American diplomats back in Ukraine starting next week. They'll then start the process of looking at how we actually reopen the embassy itself.
The visit by the two US secretaries comes in the wake of a great deal of ambiguity on precisely what the United States is willing to do for Ukraine. Apart from a large number of weapons and facilitations of spares and supplies from neighboring NATO countries, there has been criticism from within Ukraine about why the United States doesn't increase its actual presence on the ground. US diplomats returning to Ukraine in all likelihood would restaff the consulate in western Ukraine's city of Lviv before returning to Kyiv. Russian President Vladimir Putin, at the time when Zelensky was meeting the US top delegation, was attending Easter Mass in Moscow. The last time the US came closer to the Ukrainian border, Russia had actually bombed Lviv. US President Biden was visiting Ukrainian refugees at the Ukraine-Poland border. Closest to the location on the side of the Ukraine was Lviv. The Kremlin this time has so far been silent on this secret US mission on Ukraine soil. But as Russia gets set to escalate even further, the question now is precisely what benefit will come to Ukraine from the American escalation. Bureau Report, India Today.
The ghost drone. Will this prove to be a game changer? Incoming into Ukraine, into this Russia-Ukraine conflict, is this all-new, rather mysterious ghost drone. This is made in America. It's designed specifically for Ukraine to resist the Russian armored columns. It's called the Phoenix Ghost. An all-new suicide drone. It's headed to Ukraine. It is low cost. It's a single-use suicide drone that in a way behaves like loitering munition. What does this mean? It loiters in the air, spots the target and strikes. The question is, will this truly prove to be a game changer for Ukraine?
In 2 months of war, one of Ukraine's key weapons against the invading forces has been its fleet of combat drones. In video after video, Ukraine has demonstrated drone application to lethal effect, from destroying Russian tanks and vehicles to even allegedly distracting Russia's giant cruiser Moskva so it could be targeted from another direction with anti-ship missiles. And now, Ukraine is all set to receive a mysterious new combat drone. The United States has just announced the supply of a newly developed attack drone specifically customized and fine-tuned for the Ukrainian military. The mystery drone, designated Phoenix Ghost, has been developed by the California-based Avex Aerospace with direct inputs from the Ukrainian military. While no images exist of the Phoenix Ghost, it is said to be a derivative of the Switchblade drone system that's already being supplied to Kyiv. The precise details of the drone remain unclear, but it will be a huge addition to Ukraine's aerial defenses against Russian assaults.
This is a drone that had been in development before the invasion, clearly. The Air Force was working this. This unmanned aerial system is designed for tactical operations. In other words, largely but not exclusively, to attack targets.
Designed to attack, the mysterious Phoenix Ghost will have similar capabilities with the AeroVironment Switchblade. The Phoenix Ghost drone will be able to hover over an area for up to 30 to 40 minutes hunting for targets. Drone operators on the ground will be able to hit targets with a small warhead at a range of up to 10 kilometers. This mysterious new drone can take off vertically, fly for over 6 hours searching for and tracking targets, and operate at night using infrared sensors. The new weapon, headed to Ukraine's arsenal, would be able to take on Russian medium armored ground targets. The deadly Phoenix Ghost drones can also be reused for surveillance missions if they're not employed as kinetic weapons against Russian forces. The US has already fast-tracked production efforts to arm Ukraine with the Phoenix Ghost.
This particular system would very nicely suit their needs, particularly in eastern Ukraine.
These drones are part of a larger $800 million security assistance package announced by the White House. The package also includes 72 155mm howitzers, over 1.4 lakh artillery rounds, field equipment, armored vehicles, other tactical drones, anti-tank guided missiles, counter battery and air defense radars, helicopters, and a whole lot more. As the conflict rages on, the US military is tailoring capabilities in each defense assistance package to what the Ukrainian forces need in the field. The next phase will feature the mysterious Phoenix Ghost. Bureau Report, Getting.
Unmanned aerial vehicles can be lethal and deadly in warfare because of their surveillance capability, their precise attack operations, and fast speed. The Phoenix Ghost, which is being sent to Ukraine by the United States, is similar in a way to the Switchblade unmanned systems previously delivered to Kiev and operational already in Donetsk and in Luhansk. Now capable of flying low before crashing and detonating in a precision strike. The Phoenix Ghost is superior. It is seen as a superior version of the Switchblade drones. Here's all that you need to know about these systems.
Ukraine using its missiles and drones given by the West to make the war more equal, taking out Russian jets, choppers and tanks with devastating ferocity. Ukraine's fabled Bayraktar drones have been immensely helpful for embattled Kyiv, proving to be the Brahmastra in its arsenal. And now there's a massive leg up for Ukraine, as Pentagon plans to gift it 10 of the newest Switchblade drones with the reputation of the most potent tank killers. Under a $300 million aid to Ukraine, the tank-buster drones work in kamikaze fashion, plunging at the target after waiting stealthily. The swift suicide dive ends in complete destruction of the target. The Switchblade 600 drone, weighing 24 kgs, is designed specifically to attack tanks flying distances up to 40 kilometers, loitering over a target for about 40 minutes. They can also use warheads meant for javelin missiles. The small drones, made by AeroVironment ammunition major carrying warhead, detonates on impact. As officials call it, the flying shotgun. The early version of these dive-bombing drones was secretly sent to Afghanistan in 2010 to fight the Taliban. The US says the Switchblade 600s are a higher level of technology that provides Ukraine additional capacity to go after Russian armor formations.
We've already sent in 100 Switchblade UAVs that were already in our stocks. We sent them in from those stocks. I don't know where they are in the transshipment process, but they arrived over the earlier this week. So they'll be getting into Ukraine quickly if they aren't already there. That's the 100 that President Biden announced a couple of weeks ago.
Will the new Brahmastra drones in Ukraine arsenal prove to be a game changer in the combat? Bureau Report, India Today.
In a massive and long-awaited boost to its defensive capabilities, Ukraine has recently received MiG-29 fighter jets from a neighboring NATO country. The Pentagon has confirmed this. The US, of course, did not officially specify which of the NATO countries provided these MiG-29 fighter jets, but they're believed to be from Slovakia, which operates MiG-29 fighter jets similar to the ones already in service with Ukraine. Incidentally, Slovakia had earlier provided the S-300 systems to Ukraine.
For 2 months now, Ukraine has received hell from the air. An uninterrupted campaign of Russian airstrikes pounding many towns and cities into oblivion. Ukraine has managed to shoot down its fair share of Russian jets, but has persistently pleaded with the West to supply it with desperately needed fighter aircraft. And now, 8 weeks into the war, its prayers have at least partially been answered. The Pentagon on Wednesday revealed a recent transfer of aviation equipment to Ukraine.
I would just say, without getting into what other nations are providing, that they have received additional platforms and parts to be able to increase their fleet size, their aircraft fleet size. I think I'd leave it at that.
It's not hard to guess what the Pentagon spokesperson was referring to. Recently, the governments of Bulgaria, Poland and Slovakia had expressed willingness to transfer their MiG-29 fighter jets to Ukraine. But these haven't really fructified so far. But according to reports on the ground, dismantled MiG-29s have likely arrived by the land route from neighboring Slovakia now. Importantly, as clarified by the Ukrainian Air Force, these aren't flight-worthy aircraft, but rather supplied in order to make available spares and components to Ukraine's existing MiG-29 fleet.
There are no new aircraft, but these are spare parts which will give a boost to their fleet, existing fleet of fighting jets. And considering the way things have been going, any help for Ukraine at this point of time is going to be of a great significance because it's very clear that this war isn't ending. The end is nowhere to be seen.
This would make Ukraine's dwindling fighters more available and more flight-worthy. The actual move may not be the game changer that Ukraine is hoping for, but any boost to its crippled air power will be very welcome to the defending nation. Meanwhile, Russia, which has warned against NATO's direct involvement in the conflict, hasn't officially reacted to the move, but could use the development to escalate further or ramp up its own air attacks in eastern Ukraine.
A little too late in the day for Ukraine, because Ukraine has been asking for it for a very long time and it's only coming now. But the other line of thought over here in Moscow is also that Russia is not just looking at NATO entering Ukraine. Russia is also looking at how NATO is enhancing capabilities of the Ukrainian forces. If the capabilities come to stand at a point where there will be massive damage to the Russian forces, then in all probability Russia is going to use all its force and might.
As the Russia-Ukraine conflict gets set to begin its third month, could much of the new fighting happen in the skies over Ukraine? The countdown has begun. With Abhishek Bhalla in Sumy, Ukraine and Geeta Mohan in Moscow, Bureau Report, India Today.
Ukraine is fighting and fighting hard. It's being armed by North Atlantic Treaty Organization countries, but Russia continues to advance in certain pockets and continues to take territory. Of course, Ukrainian forces with these weapons are fighting back to retake some of these areas. India today is reporting from ground zero. We now bring you this report from the zero line. This is where the Russian forces are directly engaged in combat with the Ukrainian forces. And India today's Mosmi Singh is on ground zero with this report from Kherson.
So India today is bringing you this report from the zero line. We are in Novorossiysk, and this is actually the territory where on one side there are Russian troops and on the other side there are Ukrainian troops. And this entire path is fraught with danger because there's continuous crossfire from both sides. You can see the elements outside of how there's bombardment in the residential areas. We can hear continuous shelling. This is what a zero line looks like. We'll show you the picture. Yeah, 2 minutes. Yeah, 2 minutes. We'll show you the picture that is unfolding on ground zero. आज तक आपको जीरो लाइन की तस्वीर दिखा रहा है. जीरो लाइन. जी हाँ, this is the zero line. You can see that all the officers and the soldiers are in action. We have just 2 minutes to show you. He is guarding the entire periphery, and this is a house that has been bombarded in this area. This is the zero line. Zero line वो है जो कि नोवोरोसिस्क यानी कि खेरसोन में है, और खेरसोन का पूरा इलाका रूसी सेना ने कब्जा लिया है. उसके बाद से यहाँ पे खेरसोन से आगे बढ़ने की कोशिश है, और यहाँ पे पीछे आप देखिए कि किस तरह से ये पूरा घर जो है वो बुरी तरह से जला हुआ है. कवर देने के लिए यहाँ पे आप देखिए कि हम लोग गाड़ी से उतरे हैं, तो एक तरीके से कवर देने की पूरी कोशिश है. और आज तक की कोशिश है कि आपको दिखाए कि आखिर जीरो लाइन में किस तरह से घमासान छिड़ा हुआ है. और ये तस्वीर आप देख रहे हैं कि किस तरह से यहाँ पे जो लड़ाई हो रही है, ह्यूमन कॉरिडोर तो नहीं हो पा रहा है, बातचीत भी विफल हो गई है, और सारा जो असर है, जिस तरह से वार्ताएं भी बिल्कुल एक डेडलॉक है, उसका असर ग्राउंड जीरो पर इस तरह से दिख रहा है कि युद्ध स्तर पे ग्राउंड जीरो में खेरसोन में लड़ाई छिड़ी है. रूसी सैनिक ने सारा जो ये कहिए कि ईस्ट पर फोकस करा है, तो उसका असर इस खेरसोन के इलाके में देखने को मिल रहा है. कितनी स्पीड में गाड़ी चल रही है, आप इस बात से अंदाजा लगा सकते हैं कि गाड़ी टारगेट पे है. किसी भी समय जो है शेलिंग हो सकती है. पूरा इलाके में आपको एक इंसान भी नहीं दिखेगा, क्योंकि ये अब नो मैन्स लैंड हो गया है, और यूक्रेनी फोर्स इसको डिफेंड करने की पूरी कोशिश कर रही है.
Both Russia and Ukraine incidentally celebrated Easter this Sunday, a week after Easter was celebrated in other parts of the world. Ukraine, of course, started this holiday under curfew. Moscow, of course, is holding midnight processions and mass. India Today's Foreign Affairs editor Geeta Mohan reports from the Red Square in Moscow, where preparations are on for a massive victory parade on the 9th of May. So what are these preparations all about, and why the 9th of May? Geeta Mohan with this report.
The tricolour is up at the Red Square, preparations underway for the Victory Day parade that will be held on the 9th of May. Russian President Vladimir Putin is the guest of honor, being the Supreme Commander of the Russian Armed Forces. And this is the very Red Square where, after the preparations that you see, the banners are up and the lights on. This is exactly where the military might of the Russian Armed Forces would be visible on the 9th of May, when over 14,000 military personnel will parade on this very same area, which would include all the regiments, the youth cadets, the female cadets, and also that speech by President Putin is going to be critical, because this comes at a critical year and a critical juncture when it comes to Russian history, but also world history. Things are changing over here when it comes to Russia and Ukraine, and there are going to be some very important announcements on the 9th of May. There is intent that Donetsk and Luhansk, the Donbas region, will no longer be considered Ukrainian territory. That is a foregone conclusion when it comes to the Russian side. But what happens to the other territories? Will Russia secure its borders by ensuring that these Ukrainian territories become either independent or part of Russia. Big questions that would require answering. Where is Russia and where does it stand when it comes to its military gains in these very regions will be something that Russian president will have to answer. There has been a real loss of life when it comes to military personnel, and that also is something that the Russian president will have to speak about or will talk about when it comes to sacrifices. Victory Day celebrates the victory of the Allied forces in World War II, and somewhere that mention of Russia's strength, might and standing for what they think is right is going to come across on that very same day. So the preparations are underway and the tricolour is up. Visitor journalist Ante at the Red Square in Moscow, Geeta Mohan for India Today.
And India Today will continue to get you all sides of this big story from Moscow and from Kiev and other parts of Ukraine. But that is all that I have for you on this special broadcast. A quick break. On the other side, Business Today with Abha Bakaya.